And we are recording. Okay, great. So, one sip of coffee, and then we're done. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Web3 Leaders podcast. My name is Colin Fitzpatrick. Thank you so much for joining me. And today I am very excited to have a very, very important guest, the man who probably needs no introduction whatsoever, Sebastien Borget, the COO and co-founder of the Sandbox, the biggest metaverse out there. Sebastien, thank you so much for joining me, and a very, very warm welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here, Colin.
So, I suppose, Sebastien, reason I was super excited to get you on the podcast today is, well, I've used your metaverse, the Sandbox, for many, many years. I've been involved in the metaverse industry myself for about 3 years. I've used, seen, demoed, talked to many, many dozens of other metaverses out there. I keep abreast of it. But you guys are really pushing the envelope with what's going on. And I'm really keen to just nerd out and have a fantastic conversation with you about what you're doing. I suppose I'd like to start off by asking you about your background. I mean, what were you doing before this? How did you get into the world of metaverse? How did you decide to sort of co-found this, what would become a behemoth of the industry?
Well, so my background is I graduated from an engineering school, and around 2007, I met my co-founder and business partner, Arthur Madrid. Back then, we were already in the place of new technology, and I joined him on his first startup, which was dealing around one of the first application of peer-to-peer technology, basically allowing users to download video on the TV and in high resolution using a BitTorrent protocol to save on bandwidth costs. Then that company got acquired by a CDN network. We worked a few more months there, and then we launched an own platform, which was a service where users could upload their photo, video, and music in the cloud. It got unlimited storage and stream content from their friends. We sold that company after as well. And then in 2011, we started our third company, which was around mobile gaming. We were one of the pioneers in the space, developing games with already IPs like City Builders on one side with Garfield, Snoopy, Family Adams, and more. Cool. And on the other side, we launched the first version of Sandbox on mobile. So Sandbox actually exists since 2011.
Interesting.
Always started with this idea that it's a user-generated content game. We wanted to empower anyone to become a creator, and how to do so by using new technology. In the case of mobile device, what's interesting is really the touch screen. Now it offered new controls. You play, and just by the touch of your finger, you could drop pixels. So start creating with your fingers little pixel arted world in 2D. Share those creations to an online gallery where other users could try it out, play as well. And that had a astonishing success. We made more than 40 million downloads over time. 70 million creations were made by players. And over 8 years of lifetime of that game, we made 60 updates. We had over 500 elements. And in 2018, we've been acquired by a larger company called Animoca Brands out of Hong Kong, which are one of them as well, a pioneer in Web3 blockchain gaming. Following that acquisition, we didn't stop working on Sandbox. And actually, it came at a time where we first found about CryptoKitty and blockchain technology in general, Bitcoin protocol, proof of work, and CryptoKitties as a first blockchain game. And we found it was actually, it has something really interesting at the core, which is those NFTs, those virtual cat as digital assets that users could buy, not from the developer himself, but from other players, and not in the game itself, but on the marketplace outside of the game, where these were two strong novelties that were not possible in video games before, actually came as a solution to a problem we encountered in Sandbox, which was how do we retain our top creators years after years? People spend hours, days in creating, but social fame, social recognition of their creativity wasn't enough, and we couldn't share a portion of the revenue we generated to them until we found NFTs. From there, we were it's been 5 years already that we work on this new version of Sandbox. It's no longer just a game, it's a whole platform with 3D creation tool, a no-code game maker, a marketplace, a map, um, the avatar creators, and it came and it grew as this decentralized platform that is today with more than 400 large brands in entertainment, fashion, in culture, and gaming, and 23,000 landowners on this map. So very exciting metrics and a long journey for success in the making.
I want to get into the brands a little bit later because that's something I'm quite passionate about. But maybe you could explain a little bit. I suppose let's back up. And for someone who's not as familiar with Web3 and the metaverse, maybe just give your own vision of how you define the metaverse and really where you see it going over the next couple of years. And what's your kind of long-term vision for what you really want the Sandbox to eventually become?
Mm-hmm. So, like we really see the metaverse as like this myriad of virtual worlds where like you as a user, you can access using your avatar. So that avatar that is like a 3D character that become your new digital identity. You take that character, you can access across all those worlds, all those platforms that makes up the metaverse. And what's new is really like, it's not like what we've seen for 20 plus years of like Second Life, World of Warcraft, Minecraft, Roblox, etc., where you play in one game and then you cannot go out. Here, you have your avatar, you have all your digital assets, your belonging, your wearable, your equipment, even your virtual land, virtual house, car, and so on. And you can use them across any of those worlds in a really seamless manner. The first time users own their identity, own all their content, and they can use their content across all those worlds without having to ask the permission of the developer to transfer it, without having to connect some API or complex things. That's really the way we see a metaverse, like freedom of movement of users and their avatar, freedom of monetization as well. Like you can transfer a content to another user, you can sell it on marketplace the way you want. And that's how Sandbox is contributing to that vision of the open metaverse. You can play with the content you bought or you create on Sandbox, in Sandbox, outside of Sandbox as well already. And you can play in Sandbox with content that comes from all over Web3 ecosystem, all the most popular NFT collection as well.
I think that's an important point because that's one of my the things I find most interesting about Sandbox is you're very, very focused on the creator economy and also giving the vast majority of the profits to those creators, unlike some of the other platforms who really take a fairly unfair chunk. Just tell me a little bit about the thoughts behind your strategy behind that and where you kind of see that going.
Well, it's always been our mission. Like, how do we truly empower a creator? And it's also like part of the story of Sandbox. Like, we've been so frustrated that we couldn't give back to the creators that bring the value that makes those platforms grow, become successful, earn revenue, attract more users. We've seen that with Web2. Like, the success of Web2 comes only from contribution of users, but the platform have kept the ownership of the content and even monetize the users by collecting the data and using it to serve them as advertisements. In Web3, we want to empower users to own their data, create a product or service where like the content that they bring, they create or they earn or they own is theirs, so they use it the way they want. And they are not the product that's being monetized. They receive the value that they contribute. So in the case of Sandbox, 95% of that value goes into Sandbox, into the creator, and 5% into Sandbox. And how Sandbox keep growing over time is because like we feel like there is this win situation between like users, platform, and creators, studios, and businesses, as users no longer lose value. What they buy once still holds value, and maybe holds more value over time, because it acquires more utility and use case. That mouse that you buy, that pen that you buy is no longer limited to be used in one place, but can be used across many places. Sometimes can grant more benefits. Imagine in the physical world that anything like you bought, I don't know, a pair of shoes, Nike shoes, but you could only play in the Nike stadium in the town where you bought it. That's nonsense. And yet that is what has been ongoing online since the creation of internet. The technology didn't enable us to have a system where you could have like trust, digital scarcity, and digital value with proof of authorship and proof of ownership as well. So those are core pillars that blockchain as a technology. And we give utility to those assets in the context of Sandbox with the game maker, where you create experiences with avatar that are your digital identity, which you use to explore, keep your reputation, and interact with Sandbox and beyond.